Hello, welcome. You're listening to Season 1 of Narcolepsy Navigators, brought to you by Naps for Life Narcolepsy. Narcolepsy Navigators is a podcast for raising awareness of this fascinating illness through a deep dive into the lives and individuals living with narcolepsy and idiopathic hypersomnia. I am Kerly Boga, the founder of Naps for Life Narcolepsy, and welcome to our stories. Hi everyone, welcome to Narcolepsy Navigators. This is Kerly, I'm your host, and today we have two special guests. One, Iris, our marketing manager, and our special guest today is Mathilda. Iris and I both have narcolepsy type 1, and welcome to Mathilda's story.
So for those of you that do know or don't know Mathilda's story, obviously she has been called a medical marvel, a warrior in pajamas, because I did my research. And literally, like, the girl who thought sleeping is better than anybody armed with a double espresso. So, at 3 years old, she was diagnosed with narcolepsy, making her the youngest person to ever face this challenge. And her journey was documented in the heartfelt memoir, Waking Mathilda, penned by her mother, Claire. So, Mathilda, please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Mathilda, 17 years old, and I've had obviously narcolepsy since I was 3. So yeah.
And you're living in the US now?
Yes, I'm currently residing in LA. Yeah, with my mom.
Despite the British accent, she is.
Yeah.
Sorry, first question. I have to ask, have you read the book?
I actually have read some of it. I started reading it, must be 1 or 2 years ago, and I got maybe a couple chapters in, but I couldn't finish it. It was too raw. I never really, I knew what my mum had gone through in theory, right? But when you're reading it from her perspective, it's just a lot more emotional, and obviously I don't remember half of that stuff. So, so I just had to stop reading it. It was too much.
Oh, I can imagine. I can't imagine reading that about myself.
But no, I have read some of it.
So does it feel like you're kind of reading maybe from, like, it's not about you, it's kind of just the weird, it is, but it isn't kind of?
Yeah, I think I remember feeling like it was odd because in the back of my mind, I knew it was me, but it didn't sound like it was about me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So you have narcolepsy type 1, correct?
If it's got cataplexy, then yes.
With the cataplexy, yeah.
But yes, I have narcolepsy with cataplexy.
So, Mathilda, do you have siblings?
I do have siblings. I have an older brother and an older sister. My older sister is currently in Scotland, and my older brother is at UC Santa Cruz.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Completely different locations.
Yeah.
I don't know which one I would prefer.
I don't either, but that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
So have you actually told your story before from your perspective, or is this the first time?
I've had once an offer to speak at a conference, but from my perspective before. No, I haven't. This is my first time.
Yeah, but I can imagine it's probably, quite difficult to have some privacy maybe when everybody wants to know, obviously, your story, from your perspective.
I mean, I think when my mom's book first came out, I was just like, wow, I'm going to be famous, that kind of thing. I mean, I was like, 8 at the time, maybe a bit older, 10 probably. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be famous. So cool. And then now I'm just like, random people know me? That's so weird.
Yeah. Imagine. It's just, I don't know. Would you go to the conferences with your mom? And
yeah, I do. Yeah, I've been to, oh gosh, I probably can't count them all right now. But I've been to a number of conferences before, yeah.
Wow. So what's your earliest memory, that you kind of have of, because you probably don't remember yourself without narcolepsy, but it's just, what's the earliest kind of memory that you have that it's kind of, you realized that there was something different about you?
And how old were you, if you remember?
Yeah, I actually have memories of my time in hospital when I was 3 years old. Yeah. I do remember the doctors taking my blood and me basically screaming against my mom, not wanting to do it. And I do remember these two I guess there's probably more like volunteers, but I saw them as nurses that came in and played Barbies with me, and I'd never seen a Barbie doll before, so I was like really happy about it. And I remember, although it might be more from pictures that I've seen since then, playing with my sister a little bit and with my brother and sister in our house in the UK. So I do remember that, actually. Yeah.
I was going to say, so your memories of the hospital were positive ones, apart from the taking the blood, because that would scare any child at that age.
Yeah, I would say they're a bit of both. I think the nurse one stayed with me for a really long time because growing up, I could not stand male doctors. So I only wanted women to, because I remembered the good experience, but I did remember 3 male doctors, and that was, and they were the ones I saw drawing my blood. So I was, yeah.
Yeah, because there were quite a number of incorrect misdiagnosis, let's say.
Right.
I remember with even brain tumor they diagnosed you with. Or
Yeah, I mean, they even didn't die. They said, "Oh, she can't have narcolepsy. She's too young." That kind of thing. So,
exactly, they didn't think it was possible.
yeah.
I think that's probably one of the reasons why your story is most interesting. Of course, it's not it's obviously it's the age as well, I think, but it's definitely the fact that it took so long to get the correct diagnosis and the lengths that your mom had to go through. And I think for a lot of us with narcolepsy, it's amazing to see that your entire family uprooted and really dedicated, their life to advocacy work and to getting answers. And it's sometimes rarely the case. I'm struggling with the understanding. So I just think from your perspective, how aware are you, or are they as supportive as they seem?
I'm very aware that I was blessed with a supportive family. I think my mom's probably the most supportive. My older siblings are supportive as well. They're obviously in different places now. But yeah, I mean, it was, it's a good environment to grow up in. And I went to a school that was, oh my gosh, so supportive. I had a mat at the back of the classroom where I could sleep, and I didn't like being outside the classroom in the nurse's office. So they just let me sleep in the classroom,
So why was that?
I think I had a fear of probably being ostracized more than I already, not that they made me feel that way, and I had been previously sleeping in a nurse's office at a prior school, and I didn't like it. It was just not fun.
So let's go back a bit. After you had those blood tests and stuff, you remember those positive experiences with the nurses. What's your sort of next memory? Is it still in England, or you have moved now?
Oh, I do remember moving. I remember I remember my parents checking out California beforehand, and we stayed with some friends in Princeton, New Jersey, I think. And I remember the new apartment in LA and going to a new school, roughly. But my memory is obviously bad because of sleep deprivation, like us all. So it's only fragments.
So what do you remember, I mean, as in your journey to getting the correct diagnosis? Do you remember anything, and what age were you actually diagnosed? Was it actually 3 or a bit?
Yeah, no, it was 3. Can't remember his name, that sounds terrible, but there was a doctor, of course, in the book, and they ended up diagnosing me, or so, saying, I think this is what she has. And I do remember the car drive up to Stanford, actually. I had a box of coloring by my side, and I was just doing some coloring on the journey, and then falling asleep most of the time,
You have remarkable memory.
Yeah, I mean, long term, yeah, not short term.
Seriously, my earliest memory is 8.
Mine is 5, but I have a sister that remembers stuff from she was 3. So
definitely, when I read most of the book, I think it stood out was the fact that it was the cataplexy that really helped them be able to diagnose narcolepsy.
Yeah,
and I think obviously from our perspective, I have cataplexy as well. So does Curly. And we always say it's like the worst symptom. If we could, we don't want to deal with it. So how has your journey been with the narcolepsy symptoms? Which ones do you struggle with the most? Which ones you don't?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I grew older, my meds changed depending on my needs. And yeah, my cataplexy is pretty under control at the moment, unless, something really exciting happens or, someone really makes me laugh. And it also depends on when my medication wears off, of course. But yeah, I think I'm doing pretty okay on meds at the moment. Yeah, not too bad.
So I want to go back to when you were little, and after you were diagnosed, what do you remember of symptoms that you were having then?
Oh, I don't really remember much about that. I know.
What's your earliest memory of something that you felt uncomfortable about in your body?
Like ostracization or something?
I don't know. Maybe it didn't feel unfamiliar to you because it's all you ever felt. But
Yeah.
like, okay, because you had other siblings, like,
Mm-hmm.
so at what point did you notice within yourself that things that were happening to you was not happening to your older brother? I mean, your younger brother or your older sister, like say the cataplexy or you being tired. At what point or what age did you think, oh, that doesn't happen to my sister?
I think it registered probably at a very young age that I was not the same as my siblings. But I think that was mainly because I looked around me and I noticed, like, this isn't happening to them, you know, this is only happening to me. And I think, you know, when people I remember like when I was younger, you know, people would like sometimes try and catch me if I was having cataplexy, like if, you know, I was really falling or something. Not that happened often, but I think that kind of idea of knowing that people are helping around you, but not seeing the same with your siblings, sort of. Yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
I don't think it registered as being anything unusual at the time because I was so used to it, you know, growing up. And I think when I went into school, that's when it started to change.
Do you want to expand on those feelings?
Yeah, going into school, I just remember, you know, my first school was a Spanish-speaking elementary school. So, you know, first off, there was the language difference. And then the second one was the fact that I was in the nurse's office. And that just felt very, you know, it just made me feel very alienated from everyone because I always had to go to the nurse's office if I needed a nap.
Yeah.
And then eventually I wasn't there for long. I stayed there for only like a couple months or something. And then I went to the school I grew up in, which was, it was Catholic actually. And it was, as a result, it was very, you know, they take care of you. They give you everything you need.
Were your friends aware of it? Your school and
all my friends, everyone at the school knew, you know, and it wasn't a weird thing or anything. They knew if I needed something, and they knew sometimes I had to take meds. Like there was a time when I had to take medication in the middle of the day, and, you know, they knew that was normal.
Did you have any problems throughout the classes, like staying asleep?
Yeah, if I felt sleepy, I knew I could I could just raise my hand and tell the teacher, and I would just go to the back of the classroom when I was little. And the moment that happened, the teacher would take the entire class into quiet time. So we would do something like grammar book. There would be that quiet time, and I would get the occasional person saying, oh, I really wish I was going for a nap or something. Like, I can hear you, you know? But at the time, I was just like, okay, well, they don't really understand. Like, they can try, but they don't really understand. So not that they should say that. You know, we are all little kids. So
I like that the teacher made those adjustments.
Yeah.
It's awkward for everyone.
And when I grew older, probably about, I want to say 7th and 6th grade and stuff, I would fall asleep in my science class, actually. And because no offense, but science is boring, you know. And my best friend, who I still keep in contact with, actually, and she would sat next to me in my science class, and she would just take my notes for me when I put my head down on the desk. So I moved my head just down on the desk, and the teacher would know that was fine. So.
Oh, that's nice. It's nice that you had that supportive friend.
Yeah, I was always like, oh, you're gonna take my notes? She's like, and I remember that first time, she's like, yeah, I don't mind taking them. I was like, sweet, now I don't have to worry about taking them myself later.
Yeah, everyone needs a friend like that in the class. Yeah.
It was very sweet. And obviously she was taking her own notes at the same time. So, you know.
Wow, that's an amazing friend.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I should even ask this, but do you have any awareness of how unique your story is?
To a certain degree. I think I know that my mom's book, you know, made a really big ripple, I guess, in the community. But I think until you said all those things, like in the beginning, you were saying all those nicknames. I was like, what? I've never heard that.
Apologies for that, by the way.
It's all good. It's all good. I think I'm sort of coming into that a little bit more, that realize, because I'm obviously older, but you know, growing up, not so much.
I think that's quite normal because obviously your life is, you know, you live your life like a normal person, you know, where everything. And I think especially in the narcolepsy community, even me, you know, a lot of people are diagnosed so much later on. And even us, we struggle to have that kind of awareness or really acceptance for a while. It's not normal. But I think it's just remarkable. Obviously, we hear a lot of stories here on the podcast and we've never heard one like yours before. Because
I only know one other person who had it from birth. And, and she didn't get diagnosed until she was like 15.
Okay.
She spent most of her years in hospital as a child, just not knowing. They just didn't know what was wrong with her. And when she was a baby, people used to say to her mum, "Oh, you're so lucky to have a baby that sleeps all the time. She's so quiet. She's so peaceful." And the mum would be like, "Yeah, well, I can't feed her if she's always sleeping." And they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky. You shouldn't complain about these things."
I think that would be a lot more difficult than having it since the age 3, but I obviously don't remember.
But I think for me, it's more in terms of the support, the incredible support system you seem to have had around you.
Yeah.
Especially in school, because obviously I know for me, when I went to university, I wasn't diagnosed obviously until I was 28. Like my professor, I remember once I fell asleep and I put myself in the front row so that I wouldn't, right? And then I did anyways. And I remember waking up with him dropping a loud book next to my head.
Oh, I thought you were going to say on your head. I was like, wow.
Thank God, no, that would have been a bit abuse. But it was almost, because I was sleeping in his lecture. And I think that's more the normal story that we hear, because people aren't aware, of narcolepsy, unfortunately. Do you think your experience would have been different if you had remained in the UK?
Yes, I think from everything I know, because I have gone to school in the UK since, but I think it's just honestly not the best education system, and they're really shoddy when it comes to trying to give you accommodations. Like one school I was in the UK, again, the only accommodation I could really have was like a place where, someone who was physically disabled would go, right? So I had that bed, but then there was this issue where some of the kids in the school would try to like open the locks of the doors. So I was like, seriously, is this safe? So then I went to the nurse's office, but the issue with me staying in the nurse's office is that injured kids kept coming in. So
it's like, how hard is it to get a little room to
What was their solution? What was their solution to that?
Well, I had to deal with it.
Just had to deal with it.
Yeah, until I was done.
Well, I'm currently in Portugal and Curly's in the UK, but I grew up in London as well with Curly. So don't know exactly what part of the UK you're from.
I'm technically from Bristol, but I'm talking about Scotland, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Just wanted to make sure because I definitely know schools in London. I don't think we even had a nurse's office.
Yeah, I remember the nurse's office.
Yeah,
but we never went there unless you were really sick. Right? I remember going there if you had a really bad period or something. They'd let you lay on the bed for maybe half an hour, and then they'd send you back to class.
We used to stay in the hall and wait for the parents to come.
My really good school here growing up, they had the quote unquote nurse's office was actually also the reception office place. So basically, if you had a wound or something, you'd go there, and one of the many people there would just grab some band-aids and stuff, clean you up, and then call your parents and send you home, that kind of thing. So we didn't actually have a proper nurse's office in that school. But
no, it's a little bit awkward. So how long did you study in the UK for?
Oh, only 2 years probably. I've been online for a good couple of years because, on and off for a couple of years. Obviously, COVID happened. And I don't know, online is just so much easier than actual school. You can choose your own timetable, you can nap when you want to. And then, so I wasn't in there for very long. COVID and a little afterwards as well.
I was just going to ask if, obviously, COVID for a lot of people, especially even with, chronic illnesses and invisible illnesses, they were very affected, and a lot of people in a very positive way. So I was just wondering if that was your experience or if you noticed anything different before and after.
Yeah, I think the one downside, for everyone in COVID was the fact that, you don't have that same social interaction with people. And I'm not an extrovert by nature, so I was fine with that. But I do want to, meet friends and stuff without having to wear a mask. Not that I don't understand the reason for it. But I think that was a drawback. I do think I enjoyed it a lot more, though, because I just, I don't have to get up at 7 a.m. and go to school and get dressed in the uniform, or come back at 4 p.m. and then do homework, But I enjoyed it because my mom actually taught me some English. She was doing an MFA at the time. So she did this whole English course with me on different books, which is really good.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
English seems to be your thing as well then, maybe.
Yeah, I love writing and reading, yeah.
Oh, same here.
Yeah.
I studied history. It's a bit different. But...
Oh, I love history. Don't get me started on history. I can start talking about it all day.
It's a 20 thing, I know. Sorry. But I actually wanted to say, I don't know, but in terms of, obviously there's a lot of public perception, and it kind of obviously must have shaped somehow your experience. And I don't know how kind of that affected you, and if there's any misconceptions that you'd like to correct.
I think one of the interesting misconceptions I noticed growing up was that just because you have narcolepsy means you can't do anything. And I find this happens with both the community of people with narcolepsy when they come into it, and also in general, the public, right? And I think something my mom, narcolepsy isn't you, it's only a part of you. And that really shaped my idea of what narcolepsy was, because I never really considered it to be, as much of a drawback, I guess you could say. It gives you so much like creativity, and it brings you into this whole community of other people, that you never would have met otherwise. And I'm a positive thinker, so, I always try and think of the good things, not the bad.
No, that's really good. That's a really good mindset to have.
Yeah, but I think, the misconception that we can't do anything, like I've heard of people who weren't allowed to drive just because they have narcolepsy. Whereas if you're safe and you take a nap and then drive, or I think it's very limiting if we have that mindset.
Have done your driver's ed yet?
No, we don't own a car, so there's no point.
Oh, I love driving. So as a person with narcolepsy, I can definitely say if they took away my driving, I would cry.
Yeah.
And I think I love what you said about the creativity.
Yeah.
Because that is something we always talk about. And there's something about people with narcolepsy being extra creative, or like tapping into something that we don't quite know.
Yeah, I think it's really like a sort of magical, I guess you could say, aspect of narcolepsy. I like to think of narcolepsy as like good and bad, right? The bad is obviously that you have extreme sleep deprivation, amongst like cataplexy if you have type 1, and all manner of other sleep related stuff. But the good news is that, you have creativity and all this stuff that you can work with.
I do love it. Sorry. It's because literally your mom said something that took me years to figure out. And in my blog, if you go back to my very first post, I wrote narcolepsy like is my life. And it was only years later that I actually changed it to narcolepsy is a part of my life. Of my life, and I think that is something that it's amazing that she taught you so early on, because you couldn't let it define you.
Yeah, and I think it's made it so that, I don't go about my day thinking, gosh, it sucks that I have to go for a nap. It's more like, okay, so I have to go for a nap, and then what am I going to do with the rest of my day?
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Matilda, do you take regular naps? What's your sleep hygiene like?
It's probably a little all over the place. I usually have one in the morning because I kind of wake up in the mornings early, and I don't really like falling back to sleep, even if I'm tired. I just want to get up and get on with the day. So I normally have one in the morning, and then one or two later in the day as well. And my sleep hygiene could probably be a bit better, but I think it's okay.
No, that sounds much better than a lot of people.
Mine definitely. Last night I did not sleep, just by the way. But do you suffer with insomnia or sleep paralysis, hallucinations? What's your experience with that?
I do have hallucinations. I have hypnagogic hallucinations, but I don't have them all the time.
Oh, that's
that I can remember, obviously. I mean, when I was really, really little, like every little kid, you have more nightmares when you're younger, right? So I would have nightmares all the time, but obviously they're so real. I would wake up and think someone had like murdered another person or something, or like if I watch, that's why I have to be really careful watching World War II movies and stuff, because if I watch it and then I go to bed, then I end up dreaming about it, and then I'm in the midst of World War II, and I have done that before.
That's so fascinating. World War II is my favorite subject.
I love World War II as well. That's why I like to watch the movies about it. But
Yeah, but it's not so nice when you're being blown up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's why even me and Curly say all the time, we can't watch horror movies.
No, I can't.
And,
no.
Yeah, because our brain comes up with enough to last a life by your own horror movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but I don't have insomnia or sleep paralysis.
Oh, thank God.
I do grind my teeth though, if that counts as anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bruxism is very real.
Jaw pain. Yeah, bruxism, the jaw pain from it.
See, and I think it's something that they don't really usually talk about as well, linked to narcolepsy.
No, and they should, because it
seems like a lot of us do it. So how do you feel? Obviously, your mom does a lot of advocacy work. And I think times when you're the subject of the book, it's that expectation of, oh yeah, she's going to be the next big advocate. But of course, you're your own person, you know? And I always think you should never do what people expect you to. You should always do what you want to do. So how do you see your future in terms of advocacy life? Does it interest you? Does it not? And if it doesn't, we completely respect that. And I understand it. So don't be afraid.
I think it's a good question. I think I would definitely be interested in, speaking at conferences or helping other people out who have narcolepsy, but I don't think I would get into the same sort of zone as my mom. I think I'd like to do something like actually being a therapist. I would like to do that. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think because I want to, obviously, when you have narcolepsy, you understand, a good portion of hardship that people go through, right? But I also think, I don't know if this is true or not, but people tell me that I'm very, sympathetic. And so I was thinking, use that for therapy and help other people out, even if they don't have narcolepsy,
That's very good. Yeah.
I think that's amazing. Definitely. We need more therapists with narcolepsy that understand. And definitely more people with narcolepsy in the medical community, I would say. That we can maybe educate other people.
So true.
Besides being a therapist, you said you like to write and everything. What kind of writing and what's your artistic side, let's say, that you attribute to narcolepsy?
So I would say I like doing crafts, actually, making things. I enjoy writing a little bit. I really should do more of it. I've only written a little in the past couple of years, but I actually wrote a short story and for a class once, and my teacher had the short story along with all the other kids' stories published in this like limited, booklet thing.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
yeah. And then I realized that there was a typo in it. So
oh no. Worse.
It like cut out like half of the storyline. So I was like, oh great.
It just say it was meant to be that way. That was intentional. Right, yeah. Artistic choice. But I think you're probably the youngest person I think we've interviewed so far, right?
Yes.
Do you have any fears about the future, especially I know in terms of medication or consequences long term? Is there anything that you fear or think about?
Narcolepsy related or just in general?
Both.
Okay. I think obviously the biggest question of our generation has to do with, climate change and stuff. But narcolepsy related, I think one of my biggest fears is probably because I do know that I have a very maternal aspect. So I do know that I want to have kids someday. And I think I'm worried that I'm going to pass it on to them. That's my biggest fear. Again, narcolepsy has its bad and good sides, but I'd rather not pass it on to one of my kids. So yeah, that's probably one of my biggest fears.
That's understandable.
Yeah. Well, we don't have kids, so that's our fear too, probably. I hadn't actually thought about that.
Yeah.
I actually thought you were going to say that it was the pregnancy that would scare you because usually you have to stop the medication.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't be super thrilled, going through that, but at the end you get a baby, so. I mean, yeah, it would suck not having medication. And, I've heard of all sorts of, stories. You can't take any medication and you then are sleepy all day.
When was the last time you went without medication?
During the day?
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
Do you remember how that felt?
Yeah, I accidentally didn't take my meds that day. And by accidentally, I mean, I completely forgot. So I was thinking to myself, wow, I feel really tired today. And the good news was it was a home day anyway. So I was like, man, I feel so tired. And we had these cats at the time and they were just kittens. They were staying in this one room. And I went in and I just hung out with them and I ended up falling asleep with them like multiple times during the day. And I kept on saying to my mom, I just don't know why I'm so tired. And my mom's like, wait a second, have you taken your meds today? It's like, oh, no, I haven't. That makes sense.
Oh, that's horrible.
But it was like super, it felt rough. It's just you constantly feel exhausted and your body doesn't have any, you fall asleep and then you wake up and you're like, I don't feel refreshed. I need to fall asleep again.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of my things because obviously I know in the US, it probably was one of the best choices your parents made because they have so many choices in terms of even medication or support. I live in Portugal,
Mm-hmm.
Not so much here. And right now we undergo a lot of shortages of medication. I don't know if that happens in the US.
I don't know about that. My mom's one in
I don't think it really does. I think
so.
it's Europe thing as well that happens, because in the UK, I think, Curly, does it happen sometimes too?
Yeah, there was a lot happening last year.
Yeah. See, we are currently, again, no medication in any of the pharmacies. So I think that is really brilliant. But so do you think you're going to stay in the US, or do you think about going back to the UK and making some changes, or I don't know?
I don't know if I'm going to be like a superhero that saved the entire world. Sure.
We're all superheroes.
Yeah, I guess. I think I would say I may be going back to the UK for college, but I don't really know yet. It sort of depends on the next like year or so. And otherwise, I would stay here even after I come. If I do go to UK for college, I would come back because this is home. So, you know.
Of course. Yeah. I was going to say, do you, because obviously there must be people in your life that you meet, new people that have never read your mom's book, that have no idea about your narcolepsy. So how do you feel? Do you tell people straight away, or is it something that you keep to yourself? Like,
well, it depends honestly on which part of the world you're in. I found if you go to an American and you do it, it's probably going to get a positive response. If you do the same, when I was in Scotland, I tried that with people in school, and it did not end well.
Really?
Yeah, my first school was pretty bad. I was actually like kind of bullied there. So, yeah.
Oh, no.
I went to another one later on, and I just didn't mention it to anyone unless it was my best friend there. So, yeah.
Really?
Oh, wow. So it was like kept on the wrap.
And my teachers knew, but that was about it.
Oh, wow.
Well, there's not, I don't think I know a lot of people in Scotland with narcolepsy, so there must not be a lot of awareness there.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've learned sort of that you can approach the subject, but unless someone specifically asks you, it's probably best to avoid. Unless necessary, obviously.
Yeah. See, that's very interesting. Do you think if you went back to Scotland now, would you still have that same approach? Or would you be more open to talking about it?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, my first thought is always I just want to get it off my chest so people know, right? And then I don't have to deal with it later on down the road. But you know, you sort of have to read the room and the situation at hand. So
yeah, that's true.
You don't really want to get a negative response to it.
No, I actually think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, about reading the room, because not everybody is kind, and not everybody is even emotionally intelligent enough to take in information sometimes. So even if you tell them in good faith or as a pre-warning or a pre-whatever, they might not even be ready to receive it at that particular moment in time.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we think about that.
No, definitely. I think that's one of but obviously, especially for me, I was diagnosed when I lived in Africa. So in Africa, there is none awareness. And it was, there's a lot of things like even about Scotland, like imagine in Africa, people sometimes can associate it with witchcraft or possessions or.
Wow, okay.
There's still a lot of misunderstanding, yeah, and a lot of crazy thinking that it's just, it's just old traditions or old mindsets.
Yeah, no.
So I do like that, because I'm quite like you, like, oh, I just want to get it off my chest so everybody knows. But I like that you said that, because it kind of made me rethink my approach and be like, wait, no, read the room.
Yeah. Again, it just depends on where you are in the world. I think every culture is different, and every person is different as well. So.
So your mom does a lot of conferences, but are they mostly in the US or the UK?
At the moment, quite a few of them are in the US, but she does go to places like Europe. In a couple months, I think she's going to one in France, maybe.
Do you go to those ones too?
It honestly depends. Sometimes, I try and go to as many as possible, but, sometimes it's just too many in a row. Like at one point last year, there was like 3 conferences back to back or something. And or it was like 2 conferences or something, and my mom was swamped. And I went with her to one of them, and then there was another, I think, not long afterwards. Oh yeah, there was another one she went to not long afterwards, and I stayed with friends. So
Wow, that's a full-time job. Yeah.
yeah.
Literally sounds really, really like hard. So, so it's a good thing your mom doesn't have narcolepsy, maybe, because that would kill me.
I know. So yeah,
But
I go to the ones like I'm going to the one in Houston in the next month or so.
do you find dealing with them easy or hard, or do they wear you out? Or
They do wear me out, I think, because obviously you have to interact with a lot of people, and I'm an introvert, so.
you don't seem
But
like
I can be very social when I need to be. And I do enjoy talking with people. I enjoy hearing everyone's different stories. But I think when you get back to your hotel room, you're just like, oh gosh, that was a
Thank
long
God.
day.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
So have you made any friends with narcolepsy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I went to it was years ago now, but there was a conference in Florida, and it was a really cool conference actually. And there was a number of kids I met there. One of them, her name is Hero. She's I don't know how they managed to choose a name that was so fitting, because obviously she has narcolepsy.
Wow.
And she's a very nice person, and we keep in contact.
Oh, that's good. So Matilda, are you dating or have you dated?
No, I'm not currently dating, and I wouldn't say I've technically dated anyone before.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna go there, but
I'm more than open to in the future.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested right now.
Right now. Good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you, hon. Trust me.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's definitely obviously another part of your life that can also be really impacted by narcolepsy.
Yeah, and challenging when you come to that new stage. I always say to people, because I was diagnosed when I started my symptoms when I was 15, I was diagnosed when I was 18, and I'm 41 now, that narcolepsy comes in waves.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like really good. Like I can remember being in my 20s, going to concerts, standing up outside for the concert, like 1 hour, and then going in for the concert. And then that's another hour before the real act comes on, the pre-act, and then the real person comes on. And I did all this, and I think about this now. I was like, how did I do this? Like, how was it possible for me to do
I
this?
went to a wireless festival once. Can you believe
in heels and everything, fully with narcolepsy? How? Like now, I have my disability badge thing. I go straight on the disability door. I go straight in, and I get my seat straight away. There's no lining up. There's no.
Really? Sound like an old woman.
Well, I agree. I think it does come in waves. I think, it depends on your age and the time of life, I think.
Yeah.
So do you feel your symptoms do they change over time? Or
That's a good question. I think it's sort of, I know when I first got narcolepsy, I was vomiting from actually Xyrem. Like my body couldn't handle it. But we created like a regimen that meant that I had a little bit of food with it, so my body, was okay. And I had a probiotic drink to sort of settle the stomach, I guess. And I got used to the taste eventually, But I think
it's really salty and it's horrible. I remember when I just started taking it, I'd have to take a mint afterwards. I'd have to have a drink of water, like a lot of water, and then I'd have to take a mint after, just to get rid of the taste, because
it's like salt water.
Yeah, it was like someone was feeding you water from the ocean, like down your.
Well, we don't have Xyrem in Portugal, so I have no idea.
I'm on Xywave actually at the moment, and it's not salty. I can tell you that much. It's not as salty. So
is that because, do you feel like, obviously, me, I've had to change my medication because some of it eventually wears off, and then I have to change. Do you get that as well?
Yeah, I think I've tried probably a good number of medications over the years, and Xywave was not Xyrem was okay, but it wasn't like, it didn't make me sleep for the whole night. So when I got onto Xywave rather, for some weird reason, I started sleeping better.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's
even
interesting.
though like the scientists have all been like, but it doesn't actually have the same amount of like stuff that makes you sleep as Siren does. So I was like, okay, well apparently my body doesn't care.
That's the fascinating thing about narcolepsy. Every single person is so different,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the symptoms are so different for everybody. And that's what fascinates me the most. Like, because what works for you doesn't work for me. What works for me doesn't work for you. And then that question, I actually wanted to ask, have you ever tried any alternatives, like, you know, the keto diet or, you know,
yeah, I have tried keto actually. I did it probably more so for weight loss when I was younger because I was getting really worried about my health. And I did that with my mom, actually. She was very supportive about that. And we did that as well because of, narcolepsy. And it did actually keep me awake, but it was very extreme. And I would say that it made it very difficult to go to a social event and then, see a bunch of sugar in front of you. And you're like, great, I can't have any of this. So, yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm not on anything like super special, but I have tried that kind of thing. And it does do the trick of keeping you awake with consequences.
yeah.
Oh.
I think that is very interesting. I tried keto as well, not as extreme because I can't really cook and I don't like it. But I think that's interesting because a lot of people do say your diet can be changed and that can make a big difference. But it is the extremity that you have to go to change your diet, and that obviously impacts some other aspects of your life, like your social life, and is it really worth it, really, in the end?
Well, also, it ended up being right before we went to Scotland, so bad timing. Then you move, and you're like, I can't be bothered to keep it up.
What did you eat there? Haggis?
That is the traditional food, yes. And the first time I saw it, someone said to me, "You know what that is?" I said, "No." Do I want to know? They said, "Well, actually, it's like the intestines of different animals." And I was like, "Wonderful! Now I don't need to know. I won't eat that ever."
That's as much as I know about Scotland.
Yeah, no, don't worry. That's pretty much something. No, I'm joking. Doesn't sum it up, but you know what I mean.
So I just need to ask this because since the beginning, I think Curly would love to ask you. So why did you decide to agree to an interview with us?
That's a good question. Well, why not? I like the opportunity to, try an interview first off, my first one, and it doesn't do any harm.
And you're a natural girl.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think if I can help just like one person with narcolepsy with something in my story, then it's worth it.
There you go. See, it's in your blood.
Yeah, advocate right there.
Last question I have, sorry, very last.
All good.
Have you thought about writing your own book one day?
Oh, yes, actually I have.
Yeah.
I have thought about it. I don't know where I would start. That's the trouble. There's so much.
Well, I think you can. You know how you said you wrote the short story for class?
Yeah.
You could just start off with short stories of your memories, like how you told me about the thing with the Barbie dolls. That's like a very distinct short memory, and you just do another one. Before you know it, your book has just made itself.
There you go.
Dude, that's how I did my blog. It's called Life in Flashes because it's literally flashes.
Yeah.
So you can take it. Fine, okay. I don't need it.
Yeah, I mean, I never actually technically finish a story that I write, so that would also be the issue. I'm terrible at finishing a story. I get the idea for it, and I write out all these little ideas, and I have like a long list of stories I've come up with ideas for, and I never finish them.
That's my life story.
yeah, exactly. A never-ending story.
Definitely. I think that's probably a narcolepsy thing too. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, but yeah, I would definitely consider doing it.
Can't wait.
Yeah, watch this space, everybody.
So,
Matilda, if you could press a red button and get rid of narcolepsy, would you press it?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I think, first off, I don't know what it would be like without it. I think somebody who's lived 10 years without narcolepsy would at least know whether or not they wanted to not have it. I think whilst there's obviously a lot of drawbacks to it, there's also a lot of bonuses. The creativity being one of them, I wouldn't really want to lose that. And I don't know if that would be impacted by, I'm guessing probably. And I mean, let's be honest, having a disability badge and stuff really helps things out. When you get into the best parking spots and stuff.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, yeah, I think I just don't know what it would be like without. So I don't know if I can answer that.
What? So you would? Or you wouldn't?
Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't, but I don't know what it would be like beforehand anyway.
So crazy.
Matilda, when you've been traveling, have you used special assistants?
In the airport or?
Yeah, in the airport.
Well, we have gone to the airport before and I've been practically falling asleep because we were waiting in line for but I think we either said no to a wheelchair or said yes, I can't remember. But anyway, not that I would normally pick yes because obviously it sucks. But I think I just didn't care at that point. I was too tired. And we had to get somewhere. Anyway, so I remember this guy, I don't think we did it in the end, but I think this guy said to us, okay, well, why didn't I do this? Why don't I take you and get you straight through this line? And so without the wheelchair, I managed to get straight through the line. So I have had assistance, and normally I don't think when I'm traveling I need it as much because if you're on a plane, it's, you just fall asleep half the time and the other time you just watch movies. So it's more like the airport that's the issue, but you can usually, as long as you do the ticket ahead of time, you usually get through. And then for driving in a car, you can just nap half the time, so not really. I have it with me. That's about it.
For the future, if you ever decide to be a global trotter or if you ever decide to be into traveling, I recommend you take it on. It works wonders. I use it all the time. You never have to worry about missing your flights because it's the person's responsibility to make sure that you get on the flight. So, yeah, it really, really helps because I was traveling from when I was early teenager. I used to go to Florida all the time to see my aunt. And then you used to go, when you're under 16, you go with the air hostess and they take you through all the back parts of the airport where it's really great. Yeah. Then I turned 17 and then you can't go with the air hostess anymore. You had to do it on your own. And the first time I did it on my own, and I hadn't been diagnosed with narcolepsy yet, but I already had the symptoms. And I was like, oh my God, the airport's so much bigger than I remembered because I was only used to taking all the back ways. And then you have to remember about your flight and you're constantly falling asleep and things like that. Yeah. When I was much older and I realized there was such a thing as special assistance, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. They just push you in the wheel. You fall asleep, someone will wake you up, make sure you get on the plane, and you don't have to worry about anything.
That's nice. That's really nice.
Yeah. And trust me, it might not seem anything like if you're in a very small airport, like maybe Spain, like Madrid, the airport's really small. If you go to somewhere like JFK or like a really massive airport, oh my God, you wish like you had it because when you don't, you look like you're drunk.
And Heathrow's horrible.
Yeah, and people don't care if you're looking drunk in the airport. That's the last person they're going to help.
Yeah,
so,
that is true.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
So is there anything else you'd like to share or any like last words you want to say to the listeners?
Yeah, just don't let narcolepsy, take over your life. It doesn't control you, you control it, kind of thing. Even if it sometimes feels the other way.
Oh, I do love that.
That's nice. So we usually end by saying happy napping.
Okay. Sounds good.
Happy napping,
napping.
everyone. Happy napping.
I'm not used to this, sorry. That is sweet.
Aw.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah, it was really fun,
Thank you
actually.
first. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
We feel so special.
Yeah,
It was super, super fun. I had many laughs throughout this.
no, that's good.
Don't worry. I think that's my creative side of Narcolepsy. Literally. No, but seriously, like, we're so appreciative. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been really cool. I read the book years ago. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna do it. Got to do it. Okay. I had to have a skim, just quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
And
no worries.
you clearly have grown up like to be a very beautiful, mature girl. Like,
Oh, thank you.
and I love your mom and your mom, like your relationship with your mom. Like, it's so beautiful to see.
Yeah.
It's how
Thanks a
supportive
lot.
she is.
Yeah.
So thank you, and thank your mom as well. So
Yeah.
I will. It was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, darling. Keep in touch, Matilda. And
thank you.
All right.
Love studying, hon, and have an amazing day.
Yeah.
Thank you. You too.
For all the stuff you're going to be experiencing and doing in the future, I see bright things ahead for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is really great.
All right,
Oh, we're so glad. Thank you, hon. We wanted to make it a good experience. I didn't feel like, like.
Yeah, I get that. It was really good.
All right.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Honey.
Views and opinions in these stories may not work for everyone. If anything you have heard is relatable, please see a doctor for advice. Thank you for spending time here with us at Narcolepsy Navigators. I hope you learned something new. Please share the podcast with others. You can find us on all platforms. See you next time when we delve into another person's story.